I'm now joined on Skype by Tom Burke, chairman of E3G, third generation environmentalism, a think tank specializing in the political economics of climate change. So a 55% carbon cut over the next decade by 2030 in the EU. Of course, governments and politicians are going to say that it's historic. Is it, though?
Yes, I think it is. I think what it marks is a real acceleration of the progress going forward, and it sets a real benchmark for other countries to step up and increase their commitment in time for the meeting in the summit in Glasgow at the end of next year. And I think without it, it would have been much easier for other countries to kind of avoid having to do more. And therefore, it really does matter. And the key thing to remember about climate change is we've not only got to get to the right place, but we've got to get there in the right time by the middle of the century. So this does reflect a really important step forward.
Yeah, but do you think that middle of the century goal is going to be met?
I don't know, is the honest answer. I don't think anybody does. We certainly can do it technically. There's no real technology reason why we can't do it, nor is there really an economic reason. But as your package showed, there are real political difficulties because the burden falls differentially on some countries and not others. So countries like Poland, which are very dependent on fossil fuels, in a sense, we have to be able to make sure the politics of this work so that their whole economy isn't undermined. And that's going to be difficult, and nobody should underestimate the difficulties. But I think if we concentrate on the fact that there are political difficulties rather than technological or economic difficulties, then we can get a clearer idea of where the real problems lie and begin to address them.
Right, but you could argue that the technology and the knowledge and the understanding is already there for us to be making much more progress than we are now. It's the politics that's really the problem. So how difficult is it going to be to measure this, to make sure that it's enforced, that countries don't break the rules?
Well, I think that the really important thing to remember is it's not just governments that are paying a lot of attention to this. We've really seen, as the central bankers have got involved, they're rewriting the rules by which capital is allocated because climate change poses such a big risk to the economy. And I think what will keep countries driving forward is not so much constraints of some enforcement mechanism, but the fact that capital is going to pursue the opportunity side of dealing with climate change very vigorously. And countries that don't actually get their policy frameworks in place will find themselves missing out economically on the opportunities of the future.
Right. So how is industry going to change in years to come? This is the end of coal?
I think it very much is the end of coal. I think coal goes first and then probably gas soon after. I think electric vehicles will push oil out of the system fairly rapidly. So I think we're looking at all of the fossil fuels being well on their way out by 2035, 2040, that sort of time. But we've not only got to get rid of, deal with power and transport, we've also got to deal with the buildings, because there's a real issue of how we heat our buildings. And when we've dealt with that, there will still be some industrial uses of fossil fuels that we're going to have to find solutions for. And then agriculture, I guess, as well, which is really difficult. The point is, if we get on with doing the things that are relatively straightforward, like power and transport, then we buy time to tackle the more difficult problems like industry and agriculture.
Well, it's nice to see you. Thanks very much, Tom Burke from E3.